Hello everybody, welcome back to Aurora C Sharp. This is our EarthCorp campaign, and I wanted to bring you guys an update. As you notice, we're in the VA system here, and I'm about to make contact with a small alien presence here. So to remind you guys, a while back, we've been fighting against the Asolians in the Asolian system, and last time we landed some ground troops there and had limited success. We had to evacuate, but we kind of figured out that we could probably take that ground fight if we had more guys and sort of more technology and just a bit more of everything. And we'll talk about that more in just a moment. But a while back, we had encountered the same aliens in the VA system over here. Now, the VA system is 24 billion kilometers away from Sol, so it's a little harder to get there. So what I've done is I've deployed, well, we have a big colony in the Akiba system, and we've got some fuel harvesting operations going on there. So there's a bit of a fuel pit stop there. Then in the Brygia system, we have a fuel harvesting base around a gas giant. So that gives us 2 refueling stops on the way to Workser. And in the Workser system, we have now set up a small refueling and outpost, and more than that, like a military outpost. So we have around Workser A1, which incidentally is a planet that I intend to colonize. Because it's quite close to being, optimal for human life. We've got a little fleet here. So let me show that to you. Okay, here we have the, this is actually the Workser fleet itself. So all we have is a capital class command cruiser and a few Resolute class PD frigates, and then a bunch of export class strike cruisers. And we have in the logistics command the Workser fleet base, which for now is just a refueling hub and a recreational ship. But there is a Duros class maintenance base on the way, which means that this fleet can just stay and operate in that area. No missiles, because we're not going to bother with resupplying ordnance here. It's going to be too much of a pain. Anyways, so we've entered the VA system. And honestly, I don't expect there to be much, exciting combat here. Although I will show to you in a moment. But before we do that, let me just also, let's see. Oh, actually, something we should look at in the Workser system is we've started surveying. Oh, we've only just started. I've got a survey ship now that's going to survey Workser B. So, but it's only just started, it looks like. Or maybe it's doing asteroids or something. So we'll have news on that later. I wanted to talk about a few updates to ground combat. So we have researched and built a 2 new ground units that we're going to incorporate. One is a heavy FFD tank. So our FFD unit, forward fire direction, which is required to coordinate orbital strikes and also fighters, airborne fighters. So FFD units are required, and I had just used these FFD scout powered infantry, but they just got destroyed. And the problem is, so we've determined that the aliens are using an infantry very similar to our HCAP heavy infantry, and then they're using, they have some tanks as well. And they have anti-tank weapons, sort of 148-48 type of anti-tank weapons. So that means that they can kill our medium tanks with their anti-tank weaponry. They have a chance to kill our heavy tanks although it's not guaranteed because our heavy tanks are 60-60, so 48-48 is not guaranteed to hit it. So, by the way, the way the ground combat mechanic works is if a unit is hit, and there are like a lot of things that happen to calculate the to hit modifier, which I'm not going to talk about right now, but if there is a hit, you first have to check the AP, whether the AP, the armor penetration, is enough to go through the armor. And the way that's done is you divide the armor penetration by the armor, square that, and that's the percent chance that you go through. So for example, if I have, well, okay, so they have a 10 they have a 10 armor infantry, right? So if my H cap has 12 penetration, then it's guaranteed to penetrate their armor. But if I only had, let's say my weapon had 8 penetration instead of 12, then it would be 8 divided by 10, which is like 80% or whatever, but then you square it, so that would become 64%, because 0.8 squared is 0.64. So you would have, if you had 8 penetration against a 10 armor target, you'd have a 64% chance of penetrating. Then you roll for damage, and the way that works is the same thing. You divide the damage you do by the total HP, square it, and then that's a chance that you destroy the target. There's no like partial HP damage here. You either destroy it or you don't. So in this case, me shooting at his infantry, again with this H-cap weapon, I'm guaranteed to penetrate. Now he has 10 HP, so each shot from my H-cap has a 64%, because 8 damage into 10 HP. Has a 64% chance to kill the unit. Now, if we look at an anti-tank round, for example here, the 48 penetration, 48 damage, if this round connects with a medium tank, which has 40 hit points and 40 armor, it's going to destroy it. But if it lands on a heavy assault tank, which has 60 hit points and 60 armor, then we're looking at 48 into 60. That is 4/5, right? So that's 80 again. So it's 64% chance to penetrate. And then if it penetrates, it's 64% chance to actually hit. So the total chance for one of these shots from an armor-piercing round to kill a 60-60 tank is 64% of 64%, which is going to be roughly, 40%, right? So that gives us a bit of survivability on the assault tanks, and it's why the assault tanks fared a lot better than the half tanks. We lost a lot more half tanks because their AP rounds were one-shotting these guys, but not necessarily killing the assault tanks. And an infantry round, like a cap round, has almost no chance of killing a tank because, you're looking at 12 into, let's say even a medium tank, because that's what they have. We're looking at 12 AP into 40, which is very little. It's like 5% chance, maybe less. And then you have to multiply that 5% chance by the 8 damage into 40. So it's has a very low chance of actually doing anything. Anyways, so we have designed a new tank, which is the heavy FFD tank. And the idea here is that our current FFD is going to be one shot by anything that hits it. In other words, if it gets hit by an anti-tank round, it'll die. And if it gets hit by an infantry round, like by a cap round, heavy crew-served anti-personnel round, it's also going to die. So it just dies to anything that shoots it. And they've got a lot of things shooting. So instead, we've put the FFD functionality onto a medium tank. Onto a heavy tank. Sorry. And this tank is similar to my heavy assault tank. So my heavy assault tank had an H-cap and a medium autocannon. Now, I didn't know what I was going to fight, which is why I went for the heavy autocannon. But in hindsight, the heavy autocannon is not really ideal because it's overkill for infantry and it's underkill for fighting a tank, because their tanks are 40-40. So I actually don't like this unit much anymore. Which actually reminds me, I kind of ought to redesign this unit a little bit. But for now, what I've done is I've got a different kind of heavy tank, which replaces, in other words, instead of having the autocannon, we're going to have an FFD element, which is going to allow us to sync up with our fighters, which we have built and designed, which I'll show you in a moment. This also makes the FFD element a lot more durable because it's in a 60-60 chassis. And this just is a good unit for killing infantry because we've just got an H-cap gun in here, which is great. In addition, I have built a super heavy tank, which is what SH is. So, well, SH is for super heavy. I've decided to call it a Titan just because I need to have a consistent naming scheme. So for me, infantry is still infantry, then medium and heavy are tanks, and then super heavy is a Titan. Now, a Titan has 3 weapon slots on it. So the 3 weapons that I've chosen are an H-cap and then 2 super heavy anti-vehicles. Now, why go with the super heavy anti-vehicles instead of just the heavy anti-vehicles? I guess let me show you here. So here's a super heavy anti-vehicle. Sorry, I have to readjust here my position. Okay, so if we compare first of all, if we compare heavy vehicle to super heavy vehicle, we see that we have the option to use super heavy armor, which is 90. So this makes it not quite immortal, but it makes it really hard for them to destroy this unit. Oh, I just want to make sure I did get extreme temperature on these units. Good, okay. And it also allows this super heavy anti-vehicle weapon to be used as opposed to just a heavy vehicle anti-weapon. Now, maybe, like this uses more supply and it uses more size. So I'm going to get fewer of them. So maybe it was a waste because all I've seen on their end is 40 hit point and 40 armor units. So a normal heavy anti-vehicle would be appropriate. But I don't like... Every time we're fighting, I'm bringing new and better tech. So I don't know if the NPR is going to be able to bring new and better tech each time. But from a roleplay perspective, I think it stands to reason. So we've only seen 40-40 units, but we could totally expect them to have 60-60 units or higher. So to me, it makes sense that we would want to bring this kind of firepower. So we have put on the Titan 2 Shav rounds, super heavy anti-vehicle rounds. Now, maybe I could have done 1 Shav, 1 Hav, 1 heavy anti-vehicle, and then 1 H-cap. Anyways, we went with this. It's just a massive... I imagine these as like mechanical, maybe walkers, right? Just like a epic vehicle with just powerful guns. Anyways, this is going to be a new part of our mechanized elements. And, you know, I'm actually thinking of redoing, now that I see it, I might redo the heavy assault tank, and instead of having a medium autocannon, we'll just do an H-cap and a half gun. And then I think we're going to phase out the medium half tanks, and we'll just rely on these heavy tanks, which will just make sure that the problem with the medium half tanks is that the medium tanks die in one shot to the anti-vehicle rounds that they were fielding. So I would rather have the more powerful and more durable heavy tanks, I think, in this composition. Now, we have also built and designed some fighter pods. So the way fighter pods work is a little weird. So first of all, you need a fighter. In other words, a small ship that is carried in a hangar. And then that fighter can be launched at the planet. Now, you can use it independent of ground troops to just do general bombardment of the planet. But if you do that, it does kind of indiscriminate bombardment. You can target, you can do like flak suppression where it tries to specifically target AA units, or you just do general, shoot any ground element. If you do those things, they're vulnerable to AA fire, but they are hidden from any other orbital ships because they're in the atmosphere for some reason. They can't be shot down. Now, that's something definitely that you can do. If you're bringing overwhelming numbers of fighters, you can really suppress flak for a while and then go ahead and just try to destroy their ground elements. But you can also use your fighters coordinated by FFD to basically act as artillery. And that is what we are going to do. Now, in terms of the actual... so the fighters contain fighter pod bays, and those are like missile launchers in that you load a fighter pod into the fighter pod bay. And so a fighter could have multiple fighter pods if you wanted to, or you can just have a single one. A fighter pod is designed in the missile screen, and it's designed down here. So if, for example, you made a bombardment pod, the pod size is going to determine how strong it is. So there are a couple kinds of fighter pods here. You can have bombardment, autocannon, and air-to-air. Since we're not fighting his fighters, because he doesn't have any, we don't need to worry about air-to-air. But there is an interesting difference between bombardment and autocannon. So here, as I increase the size of my bombardment pod, you could see at 10 pod size, it's doing 9 AP. They're always 3 shots. It's 9 AP, 11 damage. If I go to 20, we have 14 AP, 35 damage. And if I did, 100, just for fun, we'd have 35 AP, 455 damage. So both AP and damage scales up, but damage scales a lot more than AP. If we make it an autocannon pod, and again I go down to 10, we have 11 AP, 16 damage. But if I go to 100, it's still 16 damage, it's just the AP goes up. But here the AP is going up a lot more than the damage is. So, depending what you're trying to shoot, a different kind of pod is going to be more appropriate. So, for example, if I'm shooting 10-10 infantry, in other words 10 armor, 10 HP, then the smallest size bombardment pod that would guarantee a kill would have to have at least 10-10, right? So let's see, 11, somewhere, I mean, it could be 10.5 or let's see, 0.6. So a 10.7 size bombardment pod is going to do 10 AP damage, is going to do 10 AP, 13 damage, which is guaranteed to kill one of their infantry units, the Centurions. Now, if we made it an autocannon pod, if I was at size 9, let's see, size 9.654, a size 9.2 autocannon pod is also guaranteed to kill a 10-10 infantry. So for killing infantry, I can make smaller pods by using autocannons. Now, if I'm hoping to score a kill on one of their mech units, their mech units have 40-40. They're like medium tanks. So can I guarantee a kill on a 40-40 unit? No, because no matter how big I make the autocannon, it's never going to have... I can get like 40... Here, let's see. We could get... 25, 6, 7, 8, 9... A size 29 autocannon pod would guarantee AP success, but then it would only have 16 out of 40, which is 4 out of... It would only have a 16% chance of actually killing the tank. Alternatively, if we use a bombardment pod, then in size 22... I would also roughly have, this is a 14% chance if I remember the math that I did on this early. So a size 22 bombardment pod has a 14% chance of killing a tank. Obviously, it has a 100% chance of killing infantry. Because in this case, the AP isn't guaranteed to penetrate, but if it does penetrate, it will score a kill. So if you're trying to kill a tank, then the bombardment pods are better than the autocannon pods. Now, there's another layer of math here, which is there may be... So this is a size 22 pod. Is there perhaps an autocannon with... so, for example, if you do the math here, any autocannon less than size 29 is going to have less than a 16% chance, and in fact, less than a 14% chance, realistically, of killing the tank. So, there's no way that an autocannon pod is going to be in this range, higher, from 22 to 29. There's no way that an autocannon pod could be better than a bombardment pod. Is it possible, due to the higher AP of autocannons, that, I don't know, size 15 autocannon pod doing 18-18 is going to have a higher chance of destroying a tank than a bombardment pod if we take into account the pod size? In other words, because it's smaller, we can have more pods, so we're going to shoot more shots and have a better chance of destroying the tanks. Well, it turns out no, just because of these numbers, but it's also no for a different reason. It's that you're not guaranteed that all your shots are going to go onto tanks. A lot of these shots are probably going to be wasted on infantry anyways, so you're not guaranteeing you're getting the shot on the right thing. Now, that's actually an argument in favor, perhaps, of having all medium sort of size autocannons that have a chance at killing tanks, but mostly are going to kill infantry. I don't think so. So what I've done is I've designed two different pods. I've designed a small autocannon pod and a larger bombardment pod. The bombardment pod is the one I showed you before. It's this one here with roughly 22 size, which has a chance at one-shotting a tank, and a small autocannon pod, roughly this size. I think it's 9 point something. Yeah, whatever. Not 9.32. That was a typo, but you get the idea. That's guaranteed to kill infantry. Then we have designed some fighters. The marketer and the pamphlet. So they are both roughly 125 tons, which is very small because they don't need much else. So this pamphlet carries my bomber pod. It carries one pod, and you need a small missile fire control just to shoot the pod, but it's the minimum size. And nothing else, just an engine. That's all it is. It's that and the engine, plus, you need minimal engineering stuff and fuel. Even the fuel, I put just a fighter fuel tank because we are going to drop this off. We're not going to deploy these at long range to go attack the planet. We're just going to be basically in orbit or close to orbit. So, the pamphlet class has one bombing pod, and the marketer class has two autocannon pods. And they're roughly the same size. 125 tons divides well into the sizes of the hangar. And what I've done to carry this vessel is I have sort of redesigned the missile destroyer. I started with the Leverage class missile destroyer. And the reason we started with this is because those shipyards aren't really doing much because I'm not producing any more Leverage missile destroyers. So it was very quick to retool the shipyards. So we're using a 10,000 ton form factor just because I had the shipyards available. And we've designed the Venture class. Thank you to somebody in the comments who suggested Venture as a good name for a ship. Actually, let me see here if I can find the who it was that suggested it. Let me see if I can find that. I can't find it right now. I'm sorry. Maybe next episode I'll remember. But yeah, somebody suggested this as a name for our vessels, given the theme of our campaign. I think that's a great name, a great suggestion. So the Venture class carrier is basically a leverage class, but we took out all the missile launchers and added in hangar capacity. We also removed some, but not all, magazine capacity. Now, in theory, you could. One of the things that you are supposed to maybe do with your little atmospheric fighters is you can design several different pods, like a auto cannon pod or bombardment pod, that have the same size, and then you can swap those out in the hangar. So that if you want to have a bombing run with bombardment pods, you could do that, then go back into orbit, and then switch out. Or let's say you encounter a lot of enemy fighters, so you equip with anti-air pods, shoot down the fighters, then go back, switch into bombardment pods. So that is one thing we could do, although it doesn't apply to our specific situation. However, this is going to make the carrier more useful later on if I want to use bombing fighters in the traditional sense, in like the space bombing. So little fighters that carry missiles that go and shoot those missiles up close. So this is going to allow that carrier to fulfill that role in the future. Anyways, the carrier has a hangar capacity of 2,000 tons, which is enough to carry 16 of our fighters. So we're starting manufacture of those. Okay, I think that's it for sort of the review of where we're at in terms of our designs and everything. That actually reminds me here. Let's actually do this right now before I forget. But let's modernize that heavy assault tank. And like I said, it's going to be HCAP and anti-tank round. Here. And extreme temperature, and so this is going to be, it used to be called a heavy assault tank, so we'll call it a heavy, I just want to make it like a 2 or a B, something like that. So heavy modern assault tank, just kind of a callback to Civ. Civilization had the modern armor as the upgrade to the tank. So let's do that so I don't forget. I had to wait for all the. I kind of just want to redesign the armored assault deployment to incorporate the new units that I want in it, instead of just building a new kind of deployment. I don't want to kind of populate my list with too many deployments. So I'm just waiting for them to, because you can't change the composition while they're still building them. So this is almost done, and then we're going to build new assaults. But that does mean we have to queue this research project up, so let's do that right now. And we'll come up with a... I wonder why these are showing up here, because we definitely researched them, because we've built the fighters already. It might be just, I might have hit the button twice. Anyways, okay, that's taken care of. Let's end this episode by finishing this encounter here that we're having. So already these guys are on order to follow the Panteleiev, and they're going to follow it at 200,000 kilometers. So let's do this. Let's close in here. I forget what the time frame was. Okay. Oh, we're down to 15 seconds. So I think missiles have been shot. Missiles are probably in the air. Yep. Okay, I hope we have enough PD. This is actually So we're detecting these missiles because we have really big passive thermal sensors. I really hope we have enough PD in this fleet here. We're about to find out, folks. Here we go. Looks good. We destroyed... The Resolutes shot down a lot. Also, these are upgraded. This PD is better than the PD I had in my first war in the Azulian system. We have better tracking speed. Yeah, looks like we shot everything down. Good. I was a little unsure, to be honest, but... Yeah, okay, good. Alright, so we're just gonna kind of click through here. So far, no damage to any of our hulls. Excellent. So let's fast forward through this. Okay, there's another volley incoming, but if we look here at the Workser fleet, no damage was taken by any ship. That is fantastic news. So we gotta close in. There's another round of missiles. Another stream. The PD guns are blazing. I have on the other screen here the, the combat summaries, but I'm not seeing any damage being done so far. Okay, let's just make sure that that is the case. Yep, no damage taken. One thing that's a little concerning is our fuel situation here. We're really tight on fuel, which is surprising. Yeah, it's about 10 billion each way. Okay, so the place where I put the station here on Workser 1 is perhaps a little... I put it just on the planet because that's where we were going to have the colony. But it might be more appropriate to place the station near the VA jump point. And I think that's what we're going to do with these tugs here. So some of these tugs they're coming to drop off like terraforming bases. And I think we'll move this fleet base out here because we're playing it really close with our fuel reserves here. Okay, it appears that there are ground forces on this planet. So there might be STO elements, so we're definitely going to stay at max range. At a minimum, we're going to shoot down the Panteleiev and then head back. Okay, yeah, see? Interesting. So, So we took damage on the Resolute, which got shot from STO fire. And so now their STOs now can shoot at 252,000 kilometers. So good to know. This means we do have to retreat because our weapons on the export class do not shoot that far. Strike cruiser. Our particle beams only shoot 200,000 kilometers. Even though the beam fire control could technically shoot at 256. So that means we got to get out of here. So let's do that. Let's get out of here. Just transit. Can the Resolute 35 make it? Does it have... like what has been destroyed? Let's see here. Damage control. It still has an engine. There's a chance it can make it out. Let's prioritize repair of the engine. Let's have it turn around immediately. Let's see if we can make it out or if we take more fire. Before their weapons recharge. Okay, we did make it. Wow, good. Okay, so the Resolute lost one of its engines, but with the other engine, it's able to turn around. First of all, I want to point out, it's only because we have perfect training on all these ships that they instantly respond to our commands. If you haven't played the game before, if you don't train your ships, then when you issue new orders, it can actually take them like a minute, an in-game minute, for them to get their shit together and actually, respond to your orders. So in this case, they responded instantly, turned around, and that was key because, this weapon, this ground-based weapon probably has, 15-second recycle time. But by the time the weapon was ready to fire again, we had exceeded their range. So we are able to save the Resolute. We're going to head back to... so here's what we're going to do. We're going to head back to work, sir. That Resolute's going to have to go home and get repaired, so we'll handle that eventually. I'm going to move this fleet base near to the Voss jump point. Because my ships have about an 11 billion range, my military ships, and from here, from Workser 1 to the jump point, it's about 2 billion, and then from that jump point to Va is about 3 point something billion, so we're really, really tight on fuel, and I don't like that, so we're going to move the base here. And I think we are going to have to bring in some missile ships, but I'm not going to have a whole... ordnance distribution base here. I think I'm just going to bring a couple of colliers maybe. Honestly, we just need the missile ships here for one single salvo to take out that base, the Pantaleev there that's shooting missiles at us. So I actually have there's a small detachment of missile ships that I have around Seoul that are going to do that job for us. And maybe we bring like a collier ship and just park it in orbit here if we needed to rearm for a new salvo. But that's going to be it. So that's going to be it for this episode, for this update. Hopefully I can get through next time and show you guys our more in-depth plans for the assault on Aesolian. But it also looks like we have the opportunity for small ground-based assault here in Va, which could be a smaller side goal that we go for first. So maybe we'll do that. I'll think about it, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.